On a stormy night, Sarah is confronted by a mysterious figure in her garden. As she searches for answers, she discovers that not everything is as it seems. Will she be able to unravel the mystery before it's too late? Let's find out together. It was a dark and stormy night when Sarah jolted awake by the insistent sound of scratching at the back door. Her heart raced as she got out of bed and found herself standing in the living room, struggling to orient herself in the darkness. She tried the light switch, but the house seemed to be without power. She fumbled for her phone for some light, and when she finally found it, the screen dimly illuminated the room, revealing the silhouette of her faithful Labrador, Bella, pressed against the glass of the door. "What's going on, Bella?" Sarah murmured, still sleepy and confused by the situation. She approached the door and could see Bella outside, looking agitated and eager to come in. Sarah furrowed her brow, trying to understand what could have led Bella to be outside on a night like that. As she unlocked the door and swung it open, a frigid wind whipped into the house, making her shiver. Bella darted inside, shaking her wet body and splattering water everywhere. Sarah watched her with concern, noting Bella seemed nervous and restless. "What's up, Bella? What were you doing out there?" Sarah asked, closing the door and gearing up to investigate. She glanced out the window, seeing the torrential rain pouring down, lit only by occasional flashes of lightning. The garden was shrouded in darkness, impossible to see anything beyond the blurry outlines of trees and bushes. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Sarah grabbed her flashlight and opened the back door once more. She cast one last glance at Bella, who trailed her with an anxious gaze before stepping out into the stormy night. The wind was howling as Sarah ventured through the garden, lighting the way with her flashlight. She could hear the sounds of the storm all around her, the rain beating against the leaves of the trees, and the distant rumble of thunder. As she approached the end of the garden, something caught her attention. A dark figure was moving among the trees, quick and stealthy. Sarah held her breath, her senses heightened by the adrenaline of the situation. She advanced cautiously, the flashlight trembling in her hand as she illuminated the darkness. The figure drew closer, revealing itself as a human figure, drenched by the rain and shivering with cold. "Who's there?" called out Sarah, her voice echoing in the silence of the night. There was no response, just the sound of the rain and the wind. She took a few more steps, getting closer to the drenched figure. Her heart was pounding in her chest, adrenaline coursing through her veins. She raised the flashlight, ready to illuminate the face of the unknown person. But when the light finally fell on the figure, what Sarah saw left her paralyzed with shock. It wasn't a stranger standing there, but rather a distorted and twisted version of herself. She stared at the figure before her, incredulous and confused. Their eyes met, and for a moment Sarah felt like she was staring at a distorted reflection of her own soul. Then, as if waking from a dream, the figure stepped back, disappearing into the darkness. Sarah stood there, trembling with cold and perplexed by what had just happened. She went back inside, her mind spinning with unanswered questions. Who was that strange figure? What did she want? And most importantly, what did it all mean? As she sat on the couch, trying to process what had happened, a disturbing thought settled in her mind. What if that figure wasn't a stranger, but rather a manifestation of her own fears and insecurities? Sarah shook her head, trying to shake off those dark thoughts. She knew she needed answers, and the only way to find them was to confront her fears head-on. Determined, she got up from the couch and grabbed her coat, ready to head out into the stormy night once again. She had no idea what she would find out there, but one thing was certain: she wouldn't rest until she unraveled the mystery of the nighttime garden. As Sarah geared up to head out once more into the stormy night, she felt a mix of determination and apprehension. The encounter with the strange figure still haunted her, but she knew she had to uncover the truth behind that mystery. With the flashlight firmly in hand and the coat wrapped around her body, Sarah opened the back door once again and braved the storm. The rain was pouring heavily, instantly soaking her, while the cold wind blew in her face. She walked through the garden, illuminating every dark corner with her flashlight, searching for any sign of the strange figure. But the garden was empty, besides the sound of the rain and the wind. Sarah felt a sense of frustration growing inside her. Where was the strange figure? And why had it appeared on that specific night? As she continued her search, a disturbing thought crossed her mind. What if the strange figure was more than just a hallucination? What if there was something more sinister happening there? These creepy thoughts were echoing in Sarah's mind as she scoped out every corner of the garden. She felt like she was being watched, like something was lurking in the shadows waiting to pounce at any moment. Suddenly, a strange sound caught her attention. It was a subtle noise, almost imperceptible, but enough to make Sarah stop and listen intently. It sounded like a whisper, coming from somewhere nearby. She followed the sound, her flashlight cutting through the darkness as she approached a small bush in the corner of the garden. The whisper seemed louder now, more audible, and Sarah felt a shiver run down her spine. With her heart pounding in her chest, she raised the flashlight and illuminated the bush. What she saw left her breathless. There, hidden among the branches, was a small animal, trembling with fear. It was a black cat, its yellow eyes shining in the dim light of the flashlight. Sarah felt a sigh of relief escape her lips. It wasn't a strange figure or a scary monster, just a lost cat seeking shelter from the storm. She approached the cat carefully, reaching out to stroke its soft fur. The cat recoiled for a moment, suspicious, but then approached, rubbing against Sarah's hand with gratitude. Sarah smiled, feeling the weight of fear and anxiety lift from her shoulders. Maybe there wasn't anything sinister happening in the garden after all. With the cat safely in her arms, Sarah returned inside, leaving the storm behind. She knew there were still mysteries to be unraveled, but for now she was happy to have found an unexpected friend. As she snuggled into the couch with the cat purring in her lap, Sarah realized that sometimes the scariest things can have the simplest explanations. And even though there's darkness out there, there'll always be light to guide her way. But was the figure she'd seen earlier just a figment of her imagination? And her dog Bella, why was she scratching at the door, desperate to get in? Surely not because she saw a helpless kitten in the midst of the storm. Once upon a time, in a small town nestled in the heart of the USA, there was a renowned ventriloquist named Mr. Johnson. He had a remarkable talent for bringing his ventriloquist dummy, Charlie, to life on stage. The townspeople were captivated by their performances, and the duo became local celebrities. However, fame can be fleeting, and one unfortunate day, Mr. Johnson was fired from his show. The reason behind his dismissal was never made clear, but it left him bitter and resentful. Little did anyone know, this would be the catalyst for a horrifying turn of events. As Mr. Johnson packed up his belongings, he couldn't bear to part with Charlie, his loyal companion. Unbeknownst to him, the dummy harbored a deep-seated anger, fueled by the betrayal of being cast aside. As the ventriloquist left the theater, Charlie's wooden eyes flickered with a sinister gleam. The puppet's first target was Mr. Johnson's former boss, Mr. Oliver. Late one night, as Mr. Oliver sat alone in his office, drowning in regret for firing the talented ventriloquist, he heard a faint tapping on his door. Curiosity got the better of him, and he cautiously opened it, only to find Charlie standing there, his painted smile twisted into a menacing grin. With a swift movement, Charlie lunged at Mr. Oliver, his wooden hands transforming into razor-sharp claws. The once powerful showman was defenseless against the vengeful puppet. The town woke up the next morning to the gruesome sight of Mr. Oliver's lifeless body, his face etched with terror. Word of the horrifying incident spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of Mr. Oliver's secretary, Miss Peterson. She had always been petulant and dismissive towards Mr. Johnson, never appreciating his talent. Unaware of the danger that awaited her, she continued her daily routine, oblivious to the malevolent presence lurking in the shadows. One evening, as Miss Peterson worked late in the office, she heard a faint whisper coming from the corner of the room. Startled, she turned to see Charlie perched on a shelf, his eyes fixed on her. The puppet's voice, once controlled by Mr. Johnson, now echoed with a chilling tone. Charlie's revenge had only just begun. Night after night, he tormented Miss Peterson, playing mind games and haunting her dreams. She became a mere shell of her former self, consumed by fear and paranoia. The once petulant secretary now lived in constant terror, never knowing when Charlie would strike next. The townspeople, gripped by fear, tried to unravel the mystery behind the ventriloquist dummy's malevolence. They delved into the dark history of the puppet, discovering that it had been crafted from the wood of an ancient cursed tree. Legend had it that anyone who dared to mistreat the puppet would face a gruesome fate. As the story unfolded, the townspeople realized that the only way to stop Charlie's reign of terror was to find Mr. Johnson and convince him to take back his puppet. They scoured the town, searching for any trace of the disgraced ventriloquist. Finally, they found Mr. Johnson living in seclusion, haunted by guilt and regret. The townspeople pleaded with him to confront Charlie and put an end to the nightmare that had befallen their town. Reluctantly, Mr. Johnson agreed, knowing that he was the only one who could control the malevolent puppet. Armed with determination, Mr. Johnson returned to the theater, facing his fears head-on. As he stood on the stage, Charlie appeared before him, his eyes burning with rage. But this time, Mr. Johnson was ready. With a powerful incantation, he channeled his energy into the puppet, breaking the curse that had bound Charlie to a life of vengeance. In a blinding flash of light, Charlie returned to his lifeless state, no longer a threat to anyone. The town breathed a collective sigh of relief, grateful that the nightmare was finally over. Mr. Johnson, having redeemed himself, left the town never to be seen again. And so the small town in the interior of the USA became a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dangers that lie within the shadows. The ventriloquist's dummy, once a source of entertainment, had become a harbinger of horror forever etched in the memories of those who witnessed its wrath.